Aloha, Next.js Conf. Yeah, aloha. Aloha. Nice. All right, fixing a typo shouldn't require a pull request. Content is not code. We know many of you like to write in Markdown and the convenience of storing content in a repo. But that's not how everyone can work. Like content creators or editors. And as an engineer, do you really want to be the bottleneck every time somebody needs a typo fixed? It doesn't make any sense. I know how this feels. I was that bottleneck. At a previous job, all content was stored in Markdown files. Any creation of content, any edit that had to be made, any typo that had to be fixed had to be done by a developer. And then the build time was 30 minutes before we could see that update. Very tedious, very long process. Sanity is obsessed with giving developers the tools to create great content experiences. Sanity Studio, content source maps, Grok, my favorite query language, and portable text. These are just 4 examples of open source software and open standards we publish and maintain for the content ecosystem. And everything we showed today is available to everyone. We really want you to build live by default apps from today until forever. But before we talk about live by default apps, we need to talk about not live by default apps. I guess we'll call it stale by default. So we need to look at how we fetch content today. So aloha, I am Kapehe. I'll talk about how things are. After me, Simon will talk and explain the solution. And then Simeon will show all this off in a really cool demo, really cool live demo. The request-response cycle is the foundation of the web. Most web apps you use today will fetch and render content on demand. Today, in a Next.js app, you can fetch and await content from inside a React server component. Simple. However, refreshing this content might require a full page reload. We can improve the way the browser loads new data with client-side JavaScript, like when a user clicks a link. The link component provided by Next.js gives us client-side hydration, so we don't have to do a full page reload. But it is still a request and a response. So the user clicked a link, they got a response, maybe they got the latest content, maybe they got stale content. There are other ways to update content on demand. We can refresh the page. We can poll the changes. When the window gets refocused again, we can reload content. These are all requests in the hope that content has actually changed. And even when you think you've got it all figured out, bam, you hit the cache and you get stale data. And so you press refresh, refresh, refresh. So when should on-page content change? We believe on-page content should change because the content at the source changed. It seems so simple and it sounds so obvious, yet apps don't do this today because it's complicated until today. And the solution shouldn't be to power it from a purpose-built live CMS or build a separate live app. So we made it this simple. We made live updating fetches as simple as a regular fetch. The same content source that powers your blog and your marketing pages should be able to power fast-moving content like product information or breaking news. We call this live by default. And we believe it should be your baseline expectation to only ever build live apps. And for your content authors and editors to expect end users to see live content as it changes. No more refresh button, no more polling, no more caching chaos. Now, before our live demo, I will hand it over to Simon to explain how this works.
Hei og god ettermiddag, as we say in Norway. I'm Simon Svale. I'm the co-founder and a CTO at Sanity. And let's talk about the CDN problem. A very prominent thought leader recently talked about this challenge. And it's an important one, and we agree. Like CDNs don't really work. CDN, it's the caching layer, right? It works by taking our important dynamic content and data source and making them static. And then it's left up to us as developers to kind of punch holes in that, to set up timers, to have web hooks kind of fire and like invalidate certain kind of tags and stuff like that. It's a kind of whack-a-mole that's left to us to figure out how to invalidate the cache and how to keep things fresh. And then you have the live app, which is kind of an absurd thing where you're basically creating a parallel infrastructure that mirrors what you already got for the purposes of serving kind of time-critical content. And then you need to know in advance that this is going to be time-critical. This is going to be breaking news. This is going to be an important product drop. This is all kind of absurd at this kind of late stage in internet applications that we have to be doing all of this. Because content is, of course, the lifeblood of every application. And scaling it should be easy. And if you follow patterns and if you use stuff like Vercel and Sanity, it should be our job. It shouldn't be your problem, at least for stereotypical problems like serving fresh content. So let's have a look at the current architecture. It's the state of the art, right? The stale data CDN, where requests are coming in, we store the response, and then we serve the same thing to everyone forever, unless we do something active to refresh that. Now, capitalism isn't caving in because of this problem. It's tractable. We can solve it, but it's not reasonable to solve it perfectly, and we leave it kind of janky always. And it is not Kim grade. Like if you are a high-power e-commerce celebrity and you are posting on Instagram, you are creating a Black Friday class event every single time. And these events are kind of perfect storms because on one hand, you have your massive audience coming in, requesting content, browsing for amazing shapewear. And then at the same time, of course, this is an amazing opportunity for the company. So at the same time, we have all these needs to change content. Let's say something is selling out, we want to remove it. Or we see something is resonating better, we want to move it up and promote it better. And of course, this is a situation where hundreds of thousands of people are moving through our funnels, through our flows. So if we have the wrong thing, we are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is like super critical. And what we do then as developers, we punch the holes. We can't have this, right? Like we need to see these changes. So we invalidate the cache. And then we turn this event into kind of a denial of service attack. The CDN is doing no useful work. And now someone has to be just pouring money at the database service because they are now going to have to do all the work. This is expensive, even for a high-power e-commerce celebrity like Kim. So the ideal world, what we want, is of course to be able to serve API fresh content as if we are talking to the source always. And we want it to be CDN fast, and we want it to be CDN cheap, and we don't want to do any work. We don't want to do the whack-a-mole, punching holes, setting timers, setting cache keys, and setting up webhooks. And we believe we have solved that with a live content infrastructure. It's a CDN, of course. It's still a CDN, but it's a new kind of CDN. The thing we've done is to, for every piece of content that you serve, that you store in your application or that in the CDN, it has this kind of bill of materials. It knows exactly what data sources it came from. And of course, it's a kind of cache keys, kind of surrogate keys, but it's super granular. It's fine-grained so that when these changes come in, we can surgically remove a few objects, only the objects that needs to change. And the CDN itself does all the work, figures out all of these things. So there's no whack-a-mole, no webhooks, nothing to think about. But then we don't stop there, because when you come in, we do your request, there will have to be a request at some point, you get fresh content, and that's fine. But now, your connection is now persistent. We will now stream changes to your front end as they come in. And the realization here for us was, like, as we were building out this kind of more granular, fine-grained CDN, is that any piece of content on any screen anywhere is really a cached version. It's really part of the cache. So in one sense, we just extended the CDN infrastructure all the way into everyone's devices. So now everyone is kind of part of the CDN. And when we deployed this, our kind of high-power, fast-moving e-commerce customers went from basically 100% cache misses, like just raw database access, to almost 100% cache hits. Because, of course, even though there might be hundreds of thousands of mutations, and this is, of course, very often scripted, automated merchandising, different kinds of systems that remove things as they are sold out. But it's trafficking a few very core objects, and most of the content is still static. So basically, the CDN is still doing all of the lifting, but it's old but not stale content. And this is, of course, amazing for Black Friday events, for product drops, or breaking news, or these kind of typical live scenarios. But I was having an important meeting the other day, and like my co-founders were in a taxi, like battle creating slides, and then a team of designers in Oslo were making prototypes in Figma, and I was looking at everything live. Of course, Figma is live, Google Docs is live, I had Slack, everything. Of course, every work application we use now is live. It is a live connection, and we just expect that. Anything else would be ridiculous. And that's what we're thinking here, that as we make this easy to do, as we create this expectation, we will discover hundreds of new reasons to be live, value about where live content and things being fresh is useful. But this takes scale, right? There are solutions for this today. They typically scale to around 100,000, 200,000 users. Of course, if this is supposed to be Kim-grade, it has to be in the millions. And we do all of the heavy lifting on the back end. The actual protocol is super dumb, super simple. So this scales to currently at least 1 million concurrent connections. The architecture, as we roll out servers, will go to at least the tens of millions of concurrent connections. Of course, this is not necessary for Figma, but it's necessary for a Black Friday event at a high-power e-commerce celebrities website. And because of Next.js and the way it's put together, we've been able to, as Cap mentioned, to basically make this almost invisible. It's about 2 lines of code, and now every fetch becomes a live fetch. And then we think we are ready for an era where everyone will expect every application to just be live by default. And here to demonstrate that and do a live demo, let's on a conference Wi-Fi. He insisted. Let's welcome our principal educator, Simeon Griggs.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Simon. Yes, my name's Simeon Griggs. I'm an educator at Sanity.io. It's truly my passion to create learning materials for people to create better applications and expect more from their content management. So I'm going to show a live demo today, and it's going to work. I'm going to manifest that into existence. But I just want to reiterate the point that everything we're going to show today is available now and available for everybody. All right? We really want to set this baseline expectation that this is how you're all going to build apps from now on. And this actually works on any framework, but we're at Next.js Conf, and our engineers have put an immense amount of work into making sure that it works best on Next.js, and that's why it is so simple. So we're going to see a very small footprint to make this work, but you can use this anywhere else as well. And that's thanks to the fact that we have tools like revalidate tag at our disposal. So we're given primitives by Next.js, things like revalidate tag, things like draft mode, which are really excellent. It'd be nice if other frameworks gave us these things. It allows us to target a very small footprint in order to give this complex functionality and tuck that away in our packages and make sure you get live content very easily. And all of this comes from a single package from our side. So you install Next Sanity and you get access to all the very best of Sanity in your application. And if you'd like to follow along, it's not only a live demo that I'm going to do on my local machine here, but it should work on your devices as well. So I'll leave this up here for a moment while I tell the story. You're looking at a Carhartt work in progress Rocket Espresso machine here. You should see the changes. The production finished application is deployed to that address there. And I'll tell the story that Carhartt work in progress, they're a Sanity customer, they're a Vercel customer, they're an Next.js customer. And they do product releases on a regular basis. They push content live every week, and they have big limited edition drops that are hotly contested. This Rocket Espresso launch sold out, I think, in under a minute. So it's incredibly important for them to get live content out immediately. And so the experience we're looking at today is sort of an imagined experience that Carhartt work in progress could do with this live content API. So with that, I'm going to jump over here, and this live demo is going to work flawlessly. You've got to believe. Just test the Wi-Fi there. Look at that. All right, so that's a start. We've got a network. So we're looking at the left-hand side of the Sanity Studio. This is the typical editing interface that content creators would work with. It's not a markdown file in a repo. It's a dashboard for editing content. And on the right-hand side, I've got my Next.js application here, which has this content from a fetch. And I've got that issue that was spoken about in the first issue, that in one of the first slides. I've got a typo, and I shouldn't have to fire off a PR just to fix this. So I'm just going to fix that and publish that document, and that's sweet, right? And I can refresh the page, and hey, that worked the first time. Excellent, because caching's off now. Will that work every time, though? Let's really test this. Let's make an even worse typo. That did work. Okay, so that's great. We're getting that fresh content straight away. But now that's hitting our API immediately. So let's go back and have a look at our code. We can fix caching, and we can do things the right way. And we got access to new caching primitives today, which is excellent as well. So we're looking in the code here. I've got sanity client.fetch. And this is my grok query here. And I can control this because I really don't want to hit Sanity servers every single time. So I can work with the Next.js cache here to set some sensible caching defaults. So Sanity client does work really well with the Next.js caching primitives. And let's revalidate this for 3,600 seconds because that's sensible. We can hit our Sanity servers only once an hour at most. And that will keep our website really, really fast. But now that's given us the potential to cache this typo for an hour. If we can make that again. And that's not good. We don't want to cache typos there, but we could set up a grok-powered webhook, and that could fire at an API route, and that could revalidate this path. And so we can set up a whole bunch of infrastructure to fix that, right? But that's a lot of that punching holes that Simon talked about. So we get access to something better. We get tags. And this is great because we can say, actually, I want to tag this as this is collection content. So we can tag every fetch that has collection content in it to always revalidate that. And again, we can set up a webhook and it can fire revalidate tag and it can make sure that anywhere we've got collection content, because this isn't the only page on the website that this text is rendered, and we can revalidate that tag everywhere. But this also has another problem. If I revalidate that tag, it's not going to revalidate it for me. If this collection goes live while I'm looking at the page, I don't see that. The next visitor does. Or the next visitor at least triggers that revalidation that the visitor after them gets it. But what I want to know is, has this gone live right now? That should be my expectation. And I don't want to sit there like I'm trying to order concert tickets and hit refresh, 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 waiting for that thing to appear live. So what's the solution here? We can have a look at the Sanity client. That's a pretty basic SDK that we use to set up fetches towards Sanity. We've got this extra utility now called define live. And this is really all it takes. Simon said 2 lines of code. I'd call it 3. So sorry, 1 extra line of code. But this define live is going to take our Sanity client and it's going to give us 2 things in response. It gives us one, this Sanity live component, and this other Sanity fetch thing. So let's go to our root layout, and I'm going to drop this Sanity live component into my app. And what this is going to do is open up an event source stream. It's going to subscribe to changes in the CDN. And as they come down, then our app can revalidate its own tags. So now I've got our app listening to changes. I can go back to my route here, remove all of this, and let's await a Sanity fetch with the same query of collection data. I need to destructure it because it's a little bit different. And I'm going to hit save now. So hidden inside of this Sanity fetch here is all of the revalidate tag logic that we need, all of the draft mode logic that we need, because the CDN is going to give us the tags that we need to do that fine-grained invalidation. We don't have to think about it. No webhooks, no more of that nonsense. Because now, what we should be able to expect is that if I make a change, it worked! You have no idea how relieved I am. I woke up at 3:30 this morning, one of our engineers texts me and says, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Why are you asking that? Like, it's been fine all week. I've been testing this all week." I'm like, "What happened overnight? Like, where's the thread in Slack that I need to catch up? What happened?" So I've been running this demo again since 3:30 this morning. I'm jet lagged, so I was awake. Anyway, it works. We've got live content. How many times did I press refresh to get that? 0. Not 100, not once, 0. Live content. And of course, as I said, you've been able to do this with other technology before, but I could have had 1 million people using that. Who's got the app on their phone? Who saw the live content change? Oh, I'm even more relieved. I have absolute confidence. All the engineers, which camera do I need to look at? This one? I had full confidence in your work. Thank you. So now we can set this content live. We can open up this collection. And now this is the part, because like the talk's over, right? Like I set up live content. I could just walk off. But here's like the next level thing. And this is something we've learned building these demos, is that Vercel are really great at highlighting layout shift. And there's been talks about that today already. And like in the Vercel toolbar, there's tools to make sure layout shift doesn't happen. I know the engineers on the Vercel dashboard, they do a lot of great work ensuring there's no layout shift. It's really awesome. But layout shift often we think about in terms of I loaded the page or I took action on the page. Now with the Live Content API, we've got changes happening on the page that I didn't anticipate. I didn't do anything. The content changed, so now the app changed. And that can lead to really nasty scenarios. So like if I set this live, it's only very subtle. Look at the button. See how it just like snaps into different view? And I know it's only very small, but I don't like it. So let's go here, and just very small things we can do to transition this between states. Let's add some transitions, some tailwind there, because we all love tailwind. And we can go, I've got like a little component here that I like to use that it will always make sure it reserves the space of the widest string that's going to be shown in there. So now if we go back, and again, it's only very subtle, I'm going to lock that collection again. So the button, isn't that smooth? That's much better. And these are the sorts of topics that I really want to raise today. Like the Live Content API, cool as heck. 3 lines of code, now your app's live. The content management system, if you want to call it, that powers your blog and marketing pages. Now it's a complete live app, every single fetch. Like that's cool, right? But now your app could actually, we've made it very easy to make really bad apps. Because you could do things like, let's jump into this collection. Let's say that there's a product that's not yet visible. And so we just bring this one into view, right? So I'm going to unlock this product. Maybe it's a late release. Imagine the user's just about to click on this sweater in the bottom left-hand corner, and I open this up, and it just shifts, and oops, I accidentally clicked and bought an apron, and now someone's mad at me because I meant to buy a sweatshirt, and they've got an apron instead, and they hate aprons because they've got a weird thing about. And so that's a really bad experience, right? So let's go and hide that again. We can do better than this. And these are just all the little interactions and a whole new class of UI problems that I'd really like you to consider is what happens when layout shifts even when the user didn't take action. So what we can do here instead is, let's find the collection slug page. I've got an animated version of that same product's component, just using frame of motion to animate things into position. But also what it's going to do is when it receives server-side changes, it's going to store that updated content in client state so that when the content changes, I'm going to unlock this document again. This all gets saved in client-side state. Now this button appears. How fast was that? It's getting better as the talk goes on. That's not a product feature. And it's not intended. So the button appears now. So now I have to take user action to click this. So if I click this and get the definition, thank you. If I click this just once, just a little bit, now it animates into view. It's much nicer. The user expected something to change, and so we saw something change. That's a much better experience. And so we're looking at potentially shipping primitives for what to do with, when state changes like this and new things come into the view, because we might be able to extract those away into just like very generic CSS view transitions properties. So you could do that without frame of motion. But yeah, this is just this whole new class of potential issues that you might have in an application when you're building live apps, but you imagine all of the new experiences that you have at your disposal when every fetch is a live fetch just by default. But that's not even my final trick, all right? If we can send published content down the wire, what's stopping us from shipping draft content? We've got our content here because we've got draft mode with Vercel and Next.js. Excellent primitives to be able to work with. So what we do is we've got a tool called presentation, and what it can do is it can hit a route, and that route will authenticate our app using a token that we can provide at server-side. And if I take this same token and I give it to our define live property here, just do a little config. There's reasons why these are different. It's not important today. Only an authenticated user will get those tokens. If I drop those in there, and when draft mode is enabled, I'm going to just throw in an extra 2 components. I'm going to put in this disable draft mode button, which will only render when that's visible, just to turn it back off if you like. And I can put in this visual editing component, which is also going to listen to changes. But it's also, because of this authenticated state, it's going to give us some extra things to work with. And there's actually, if I didn't do this bit first, I would have blown up the entire demo. So I'm so glad it just came into memory. I need to use Stega, which I'll explain in a moment. So steganography is something we work together with Vercel to launch, and with content source maps. It's a way to encode the values of this content came from this source. So we can create a link between this bit of text on the page to the field in the document where it came from. Yeah. Content source maps. So now I can go over to the presentation tool, and it's going to hit that route. It's going to authenticate my app. It's going to activate draft mode. It's going to put my app into this state now. And I can click on any of these. And European customers, I think the text was. I haven't pressed publish yet. And I'm getting draft content live updating in the feed. And all I added was just that token and put the app into an authenticated state. And this is active both on the inside the studio, and it's active on the application as well. And it's not just local to me either. If I jump over here into the production app that you're looking at, I want you to see these changes as well. So let's just go for it. Hello, Next.js conf. I've got another QR code for you. I want you to look at that one, because you should see that draft content, not that published content. You'll be in that same authenticated state. I know it's a really tiny one. Do I need to zoom that up? How's that going to go? Who's first to see it? Anyone? Yes? You seen the preview data? How good's that? You! I'll woo for you. So that's it. I mean, it's so simple. It could have been a lightning talk, right? I had to stretch because he made it too easy. But this is the exciting future I think we've got ahead of us. We made this ridiculously complicated thing that doesn't scale incredibly easy. So why would you build apps any other way? This is live by default. This is the strategy going forward. I got to delete a lot of guidance out of our Next.js courses. It's great. If you want to know more, go to sanity.io/live. And that's got all the information that you need to go ahead with that. But as we said, this is available to everybody. This is what we want people to work with. This is how we want you to think about building web applications from this point forward. If you'd like to know more, we've got a booth just outside at the bottom of the stairs. Come and ask us as many questions as you like, and we'll be very happy to explain and show more of this demo. And we're going to be publishing all sorts of material about how to build live applications with Sanity. I think it's the best way forward for you and your applications. And that's it.